How are we doing? Um, just going live on Instagram as well. Um, it's checking my connection. That's worrying. Should be fine. Should be fine. But let's see if we can do it again. Hang on a second. Always the way, isn't it? No pressure here. No pressure. I don't know why Instagram can't do a thing where they actually have a thing where it connects to the other channels as well, because we're streaming live on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube all at the same time. So that's pretty technical, I guess. Hang on a sec. Let me just come out here and I'll sort this out. Got some exciting news for you today. Let me go for this. Okay. All right. Okay, we are live. That's better. Right. How are we doing? Some exciting news. And I wanted to pay a tribute today. The reason we're here is to talk about Jim Blackley. And if you're watching me on Instagram, you'll get a far better sound watching on Facebook or YouTube. So head over to there because I've got the podcast microphone plugged in, which might sound a little bit better. But we've got some big news as well. So last night I announced we've got David Garibaldi coming back to drum hangs. He first did a hang in September 2020, which seems so long ago now. And I guess it was 6 months into drum hang, so it was pretty early on. And it was a fantastic couple of hours with him. And he was in his studio and playing all the grooves that we love to hear him play. And it was fantastic. And he's such a wonderful man and very humble, like all the greats are, and just had so much to share with everybody. So really looking forward to that. It's on May the 22nd, which is a Sunday, and drum hangs has been over 2 years on May the 9th. So we thought we'd do a special, and it's just £5 for entry, and you also get 20% off David's new book, which I've actually just received my copy here, and this is DG's notebook, which is fantastic. And he famously keeps a journal of everything he practices, and he develops all these ideas. And it's just him kind of divulging all that stuff, which is fantastic. And I can't wait to have a deeper look at it. It literally just arrived this morning, which is fantastic. So if you come to the hang with David, you get 20% off the book, and buy the book before you come, because no doubt he's going to be wanting to show us all how he plays this stuff, and which would be fantastic. So you can go to drumhangs.com and book a ticket for that, and come along and see us. It's just £5, which is crazy. And the book, you'll save about £5, so it's free basically. So thanks to the guys at Hudson Music, Rob Ollis and all the team there for supporting drum hangs with the event. And nice to have some support. And it's not happened as of yet, which is crazy considering what we've managed to achieve. But maybe the rest of the drum industry might eventually wake up to what we've been doing, which is supporting musicians and actually paying artists as they should be paid when they appear at drum hangs. So it's something I'm very pleased about. And make no mistake, I will always mention it because they should be paid. So why are we here today? Since starting the drum hangs, I always get asked, because I put on the website, we put it about us up there, which I've actually taken off. Actually, I've been embarrassed about it. But I put about us, and I put, I had lessons with Jim Blackley and a few other guys who I've talked about on previous episodes, Bob Armstrong, Alan Cox, Phil Solomon, and numerous other people had a few lessons with here and there. But people are always very interested to hear about Jim Blackley. And he was just an absolutely remarkable teacher, and he wrote some very important material. If I'm looking this way, it's because I've got the two cameras set up. But he wrote some very important material, and one of the books he wrote was Syncopated Rolls for the Modern Drummer. And if you ever get a chance to get a copy of these books, you should, because the profound quotes all the way through the book are really thought-provoking, and they really make you think about the music in a different way. And it just seems also obvious and so true, but it's pretty deep. And I always was very drawn to these quotes. I had lessons with Bob Armstrong, I said in a previous podcast, and then I went on to have lessons with Alan Cox. And Alan had sort of introduced me to the material, although Bob had. It was Alan actually gave me the books and said, Here's the material. This is the Jim Blackley books." And he took me through them because he had studied with Jim Blackley as well. And a few people I know have been to study with Jim Blackley. And actually, Dave Hassel was the first person to go over there in the 60s. Jim was in New York at that time, and he was the first guy from the UK to go and study with him, which is pretty cool. And hopefully we can get Dave on here to talk about that sometime, which would be awesome. But I meant to do this tribute in March, and we just had a baby. So it's been a little bit crazy the last 8 weeks. And I wanted to do it on Jim's birthday, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. And I spoke to Kaja, his son. I said, I want to do a tribute to Jim. And because the tributes I've done, especially the one to Bob, who's no longer with us, a lot of people sent me messages saying that was so nice. So I thought it would be cool to do the same thing for Jim. So yeah, I studied with Alan, and he introduced me to material. And I worked so hard at it. It was like one of the quotes throughout the book, which Jim writes in these books, I think it's in the essence of jazz drumming, is he writes, you have to make this material part of your being. And most of the thing is about slowing everything down and focusing on the sound you're getting, and focusing on swing, and actually generating kind of momentum in your playing at a slow tempo. And then when you take the tempo up, it should really be happening, because you've really dialed in to what's going on, and you're paying attention to the sound you're making, and just the way your arms and legs should flow together in this wheel, and that's something I really enjoyed doing, was slowing everything down and getting into a state where you were kind of almost not thinking about what you were doing. It's almost more like a meditation thing, because you would practice at 40 beats per minute. And Alan introduced me to that. Really, I'd done a bit of that with Bob, but Alan really kind of made me focus on the exercises from the essence of jazz drumming. And you should get that book and have a look at it, and find somebody who's studied with Jim Blackley to take you through it. Dave Hassel, Alan Cox, seek them out, get some lessons, and they'll really kind of break your playing down and really get some grounding happening in there. And I feel that a lot of drummers you hear when they play, you don't hear a grounded sound. Almost the beat is not grounded enough, because I don't think they may have slowed everything down and explored it as much as they could, so I felt that was a really important thing to do. So yes, like I say, I went to Alan, and at the end of the last lesson with Alan, he said to me, you worked so hard on this, you should go and see Jim Blackley. You should go and have a lesson with him, go and study with him. And I said, really? And this was the last podcast I did with Alan. I said, at the end, I said, that's where I left it, and I'll follow on from there. Just go and listen to that episode. But he said, yeah, go and study with Jim Blackley. I said, well, I was 23 or 22 or something like that. It seemed like a big thing to do for me, to go to Canada on my own. Seemed a strange thing to do, but this is what lots of people have done from the UK. Paul Clarvis went to Jim Blackley as well. Another guy had been out there. So yeah, I kind of sort of said to him, well, how do I go about it? He said, look, email his son Kaja, and he'll set it all up for you. And I thought, okay. So I emailed him and got talking to him, and Kaja's the most loveliest guy. I'll talk about him in a little while. But yeah, so I emailed, I said, okay, well, I'm coming over, it's happening, and it was almost like it was such a big thing, because I'd worked so hard on the material, and I'd made it, like I say, a part of my being. I'd really looked at every word. It's almost like every time I practiced the books of his material, I read the quotes every time. I read the first couple of pages. You know, it really became a thing, almost too much, to be honest, because I got so into it, you know. And Alan was a great teacher, very inspiring. So I'd recommend having a lesson with him. So yeah, I got in touch with Kaja, and we set it all up, and then all of a sudden I was going to Canada. The weirdest thing about the the trip to Canada was on the Monday before I was flying on the Saturday, and on the Monday I got real bad food poisoning. I ate out and I got food poisoning, and all week I was really ill. I thought, how am I gonna get to Canada? You know, this is just the worst thing that could happen. And somehow I got myself together for the Saturday. I was still a little fragile, and I was on the plane not feeling great. But then when I about halfway through the flight, I just sort of felt okay. You know, I got to the airport, and as I walked out from the through the customs, I walked out into the arrivals area, and I just immediately, Kaja, we just looked and we just saw each other straight there and then, and he pointed. I was, oh, Kaja, you know, and I went over and I met Christina, Kaja, and Kaja's kids, who are fully grown up now. I mean, Yasmin and Zach, fully grown up, and wonderful family, you know. And they were so kind. They picked me up from the airport and they took me to Barrie, which was about an hour away from Toronto. So we went there and we went to the house straight away. And as the door opened at the house, Jim's wife Aisha was there, and she just said hello. And she was a Scottish lady. Jim was Scottish as well. Said, hello, son, and just gave me a hug, you know. And it was like you were completely welcomed into this family. They treated you like you were part of the family, you know. And people always ask me, you know, what was it about that experience, about going there and studying with Jim Blackley? And I said, well, that is the main thing. I said, you basically, I came away from that experience kind of thinking, well, there's more to life than the drums, you know. And we get so hooked up in what we're doing at the drums that we can forget that there's a bigger picture out there. And lots of us are guilty of that. And I certainly was guilty of that at that time, you know. And I was 22, 23, you know. That's what you do when you're into something. But when I went there, and a bit about the lessons, we'd go there every day, and I should be there with a cup of tea for you, and you would play for the whole day. You literally go down the stairs into the basement where the drums were set up, and he had two beautiful Gretsch kits, and his son Keith, who was a drummer who unfortunately died, his yellow Gretsch was set up there, which was just wonderful. 18, 12, 14. And then there was another Gretsch, which was 18, 12, 14. You would play on that one, and Jim would play on the yellow one if he was to play anything. So you kind of went down for your lesson, and you got there about 10 o'clock. And the first time I went over, I've been there twice. I went to Jim twice, once in 2003, once in 2014, I think. And you'd get there at 10, and you would play from 10 till probably about 4:30. You'd play all day, and he would take you through all of the material in the book. We mainly went through Essence of Jazz, and I'd worked on it so hard that I could do it anyway, kind of thing. But it was just great playing in front of him, and him just give me little pointers about, you know, just relax that, don't make that so obvious, because a lot of it is about getting the movement of the hands flowing and get everything like a wheel, but you have to calm that down at some point and focus less on that, obviously, focus on the music. He had a way of training your ears to listen to the sound you were getting, listening to where you were in the music at all times. That was the most important thing. And throughout the whole week there, he would say, you know, study the piano, make sure you study the piano. And I was doing a bit, but I'm not great on the piano. But he was very sure that was a key thing to be studying. So any drummers out there who can play piano as well, you're doing all right in Jim Blackley's eyes, you know. But yeah, so the material, if you've looked at it, it's when you look at it, but people can get a bit confused and a bit, oh, how do I approach this kind of thing? But you really need to study with someone who has been through it with Jim. So Alan Cox, Dave Hassel. Dave's teaching now in Manchester. You should go and see him. But one of the main things, what I got out of it, is knowing where you are at all times. If you're playing like a 5-beat phrase over 4, that kind of thing, you can feel where you are in a longer space. So if you're talking about 3 lots of 5 plus 1 beat, that's going to get you out in the right place. And you would play all the different phrases that were possible over those things, over those bar lines, and also fill out with triplets and fill out with all different sixteenths, and you would go 5s and all these kind of things. It was just wonderful to sit there with him and get him to explain it to you, which was fantastic. And then the other thing he would do, you would work on kind of up tempo things. He had lots of great little exercise for up tempos. He was just fantastic, and I found he was a man of few words, but the things he did say, they always stick with me forever. He'd always say things. It was more about kind of life, really, which is important. He would say, look, you can't just play the drums anymore. And he's absolutely right. I mean, there's very few people who will actually make a living from just playing the drums. You've got to be able to do lots of different things. And he was always saying those kind of things. And he'd always say things like, people ask me to say, well, how do I get a gig, or how do I do a thing? And I say, well, I don't know. I'm not the person to ask, but I do know that you have to go where the music is. And that's, Jim would say, that's where I say, you need to move to London. You need to move to where the music is. And, it's no good staying in your bedroom and practicing. You got to go where it's happening, And of course, it's been difficult the last couple of years, and people have had to adapt. And I think there's lots of changes happening. But I'm sure if Jim was still around, he would definitely have the answer, But like I say, the main thing about the whole experience was how cool the family were, and seeing this family unit in action. That was a real kind of that's the biggest thing I got from him. I remember going to the lake one day and just being kind of thinking, this has just been an incredible experience. And people are, when they ask about it, they want to know about the playing side of it, but it's really was not about that at all. It was about the family and the unit they had, and you see that, you think that's very special. I'd like to have that myself, and that's something very, very cool. So that's a little bit about Jim, and without saying too much, really, I guess he just managed to say the right thing at the right time for you, and you'd go, oh, got it. You know what I mean? And he seemed to know. I've heard other students of Jim Blackley say this before. When he saw you, he seemed to know what was going on. He just seemed to have a sixth sense of going, oh, right, okay, he's not like. When the second time I went out there, I kind of went out there to see everyone again, really. I hadn't really been playing that much. I hadn't worked at it that much. And I think he knew that, because the first time I went there, he definitely knew that I had worked harder. And the second time he was kind of like, oh, what you been doing? Why are you still, I was still exactly the same as I was the first time. So that was a shame in that respect, but it was great to be able to see him, to study with him again, but go and get the books, Syncopated Rolls and Essence of Jazz Drumming, and go and study that material and make it a part of your being. Slow everything down at the drums, I think if Jim were around today, he'd probably be looking at some of this stuff that's out there, and like a lot of these teachers who are not with us anymore, be thinking, what the hell is going on? We've got people claiming to be great drum teachers, etc., who are really doing things where you're thinking this is just not right. And if you have to think to yourself, I'm not sure about this, it's not right. Putting out YouTube videos and kind of with thumbnails looking shocked, going, oh, this is the best thing ever. It's just not music. man. It's not music, but it's about getting into the records, and that's what I've always tried to do at drum hangs, is introduce people to records, and I think that's what Jim would have done as well. And he was big friends with a lot of the guys. You know, he lived in New York for a long time. I think he lived in New York till the 70s, when it was a little dangerous. He had a young family, and they moved out of New York, and they ended up in Canada. He owned his own drum shop. He'd done all these great things, you know, and done them very well. And yeah, a fantastic person. But yeah, he was friends with Elvin Jones. Elvin had done a quote about syncopated rolls, saying it was a musical gem. He was friends with Shelly Manne. He was, you know, he'd been there and done it, and he could really play as well. He was an amazing drummer, and he was actually also a ballroom dancer. He started out as a ballroom dancer with his wife, so uh, he'd done it all, man. And I guess a bit like one of the other teachers that springs to mind, who I never got to study with either, one of the old school teachers, was Murray Spivak as well, who had this other life of dealing with audio and sound and things like that, you know. And these people just seem to you know, they seem to have a way of do everything very well, and I think we should all aspire to do that in whatever we do, you know. But yeah, thank you, Jim Blackley. And I hope that's useful for some people. And I hope this calms people down about their drumming a little bit more than anything, because I think we can get too uptight. And I think that's definitely, I remember the first time when I started talking about Jim, I started talking about Shelly Manne and Elvin and all these records and things. And I could just see him kind of going, yeah, well, this is now, let's just get on with this kind of thing. And he was excited about the future. You know, he didn't want to look back all the time, really, although it's important to know all that stuff. He wanted to you to practice the material and do your own thing with it. It was constantly about creating. One of his things, we would say, search, explore, discover, you know. And you had to write. He would dictate to you at the end of the lesson. You had to write down these things, so it would sink in, these little quotes and stuff. But yeah, very helpful. If anyone wants to talk about Jim Blackley more, I'm happy to do that, and happy to introduce anyone to Alan Cox or Dave Hassel if you'd like to take lessons with them. They do it on Zoom as well, and they can take you through this great material that Jim Blackley left us with. So yeah, thanks very much, and I hope this has been helpful. And thanks to Jim Blackley and to the Blackley family, who are incredible people. So yeah, thanks guys. And I'll see you soon. Book a ticket for David Garibaldi today. And it's going to be a fantastic hang. And we'll see you there. Yeah. All right. Head to drumhangs.com. All right. Bye.